get clear for everybody what our new Express Flow program is not, is that it is not, like we said before, an expansion of our Underwriting Express program. It's very different. It's not simplified issue. It's definitely not a no medical exam program. And why we say that is that a no exam program sets the false expectation that basically that you're not going to get a medical exam. And this is not the case. With Express Plus, many of our applicants, and basically over half of them, are still going to have a medical exam requirement. This is designed to streamline those that do not need the medical exam. So to call it a no med exam program when over half the people are still having a med exam ordered would be incorrect. And then also, this is not an impaired risk program. Typically with that kind of program, you would see, standard rates or higher rates offered. But this is basically designed to fast track the best of our risk at our best rates. So let's just kind of go through what qualifies for our new Express Plus. In order to access this new program, to have this new opportunity to avoid the medical exam, you need to submit an electronic application. So that's either through what we call Expert App or iPipeline. You need to submit your application through there. We'll still take paper applications, but a medical exam will be required with all paper applications. So for ages 0 to 50, up to $1 million, you are eligible for this program. For ages 51 to 60, up to 500,000. And then anything above age 60, so 61 to 65, the cutoff is still the 250,000 where our current Underwriting Express program is. All of our underwriting classes are available. So that includes Preferred Plus all the way through the substandard classes. And you have to have nothing on our disqualification list. And we'll get into that a little bit as to what is on the disqualification list. This includes all of our non-simplified issue IMG life products. So all the typical fully underwritten products that we have available will fall into this program. And then here, just so you can kind of see it side by side, we kind of put this table together. So you can see with the current Underwriting Express program, the ages and base limits, and then with the new Express Plus, you can see that kind of the breakouts and age bands there. And once again, as we mentioned before, with Underwriting Express, we did not require and still do not require an electronic application to access that program. With the new Express Plus, you need to submit an electronic application. And then on our Underwriting Express program, our under 250 program, the best you could get was a standard rate. But with our new underwriting or our new Express Plus, all rate classes are available. And kind of as we described before, this being a different type of program. So you can see with Underwriting Express, we had about 65% of our applicants get through without any kind of medical exam or APS ordered. And then with our new Express Plus, because we're targeting the best risk class to accelerate through this program, we're expecting about 40% based on our current distribution. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that's how it'll turn out, but that's what we're expecting. And then that last item there, use of the risk classifier. Our Underwriting Express does not use that, and our new Express Plus will. We'll get into what the risk classifier is in a minute. All right, and so we worked really hard there's a lot of different accelerated underwriting programs out there, including our own Underwriting Express. And so we just wanted to kind of highlight for you today kind of what the differentiators are with this program, why you should be excited here today. So first on the list is that we do not require a teleapp for this program. It goes up to $1 million. All of our underwriting classes are available, and this is different from a lot of programs that are out there where either they only offer it to their Preferred Plus. If you're following kind of that standard bucket, you automatically have to get a medical exam. With ours, we are making this available to anybody from Preferred Plus down to Standard. So you can qualify with any underwriting classes. And then also, conversely, some programs only basically give it to standard risk or only offer standard rates. And we are offering, basically you can get Preferred Plus and get accelerated with our best rates through this process. So we are offering it on all of our products. Some of the other companies out there are, they may only offer it on their term product, or they may only offer it on a special term product, or vice versa. They may offer it on only on their permanent insurance. We're offering it on all of our individual non-SI products. And the best part is we're going to be able to do this at our same rate. So we are applying this to all of our products, and we are not repricing or changing our rates for this program. So when we flip the switch on this thing, it'll apply to the products as they are priced today. So the rates won't change. And another cool feature we put in here, if you submit your business through Expert App, you'll get instant feedback. And so what that means is as you're going through the application, towards the end, there's a screen that indicates, it asks you basically whether you ordered the labs or not. And on that screen, if you've gone through the application and filled out the whole thing, got to that point, and it appears based on what you told us in the application that it's going to be an application that would qualify for Express Plus, it will tell you that basically it'll give you feedback indicating that you don't need to order the medical exam. Now, if you said something in the application that would put you on the knockout list for Express Plus, it'll also give you a message there saying you should go ahead and order the medical exam, because we want you to know if you're going to have to go ahead and order it, you get to know right there. And also you have the ultimate decision right there. It's before the person has signed the application and you've submitted it. This is the only reason you submitted this application was to get Express Plus. You'll know right away whether you at least looks like you're going to qualify for it or not. So it's a pretty cool feature there, but you'll only see that in Expert App. It will not be in iPipeline. All right. This program is about to start. We don't have a lot of time. It's actually launching on Wednesday, July 19th. And so that basically means that any application submitted before July 19th will go through our normal process. Will require a medical exam. Any application submitted July 19th or later will automatically fall under our new Express Plus rules and sets. So, and then also to note is that on Monday is when we're going to update our website. It'll talk about all the stuff. It'll have materials available for download, and then eventually we'll have materials for ordering purposes. But July 17th is when our website will update, and all this will be out there for you to review. All right, before we mentioned a knockout list or disqualification list from the program. And so you can see here, a lot of these are no surprise, but we want to be upfront with this list as to things that will get you kicked out of the Express Plus program. And so, being on this list does not automatically mean that you won't qualify for insurance. It just means that if you have anything listed on this list, you will at least have to get a medical exam. You will not qualify for the accelerated underwriting. And so, if you look through the list here, most of these are not a surprise. But one couple I wanted to highlight, and once again, this will be available on our website on Monday, so you can have this list available for you. And it's also in some of our marketing materials as well, and in our underwriting guidelines. So this one I've circled here, other characteristics determined using the risk classifier report outside our tolerance. And so that just references our new risk classifier that we're using. And once again, I'll get into a little more detail about that later, but that's a new one that you may not have seen before. And then also here at the bottom, another one that you may ask a little bit of questions here would be this non-disclosure of medical history. So all that means is that if we go through the application and you did not indicate something on there, and then we find, say, in the prescription report or in the MIB, something that contradicts what was on the application, that will automatically send the application out of the Express Plus program and will require a medical exam. So just want to highlight that there. So, and then also in there's a notice about like total in-force apply with American National or subsidiaries. That just means like if you have any combined amounts above our stated limits that we had before. So if you already have $750,000 of insurance and you apply for another $750,000, that's going to put you over the limits for Express Plus. So, all right, we've mentioned it several times. This is one of our major new components to our underwriting process. And so risk classifier, what is it? So basically what a risk classifier is, it's a LexisNexis product. It's their solution in this market. Basically, it's an FCRA governed product that basically takes, it's a model that they developed that basically takes public record, your credit history, and MVR, motor vehicle records, and uses that to come up with a prediction of basically life insurance risk. And so in order to accelerate this program, we are doing this kind of in the background to kind of offset the fact that we won't be running the medical exam. And so, and for those of you that aren't familiar, FCRA, basically that's just the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And so the first question you're probably asking yourself, so you're using credit score? No, this is not a credit score. It has similar components to a credit score. Obviously, like that second bullet there, it involves credit history, but it is not a credit score. You know, FICO score, or what most people think of as a credit score, that's used to determine, based on, used to determine whether you're likely to repay a loan or not, or whether you're a good credit risk. This risk classifier is been developed using a lot of different sources to predict basically your life insurance risk here. So, yeah. So, I mean, if you have a bad credit score, don't be surprised if your life risk classifier causes you to be disqualified from the Express Plus program. But I mean, there are some differences. So don't just expect, just because you have a great credit score, that you're going to have a great risk classifier. All right, and then the risk classifier effects. And keep in mind, this risk classifier is just one component of this Express Plus program, but this is one of the keys to us being able to offer the accelerated program. So that top line, that green box. So if you have a positive risk classifier, so one on the better end, it just basically means that you will be eligible for Express Plus. Now, keep in mind, there's other things that can knock you out. We have our big, long disqualifier list, but at least you'll still be eligible based on just your risk classifier. And all of our underwriting classes will be available to you. Now, if you have an average risk classifier score, kind of fall in that middle group, you won't be eligible for our Express Plus program. You will have to order a medical exam, but you will still have all underwriting classes available to you. So, and then if you have a highly negative risk classifier score, so if you're on the low end, we're basically, not only are you not eligible for Express Plus, but the best rate class available to you will be our standard rate. And I can already sense the panic coming through the internet here. So before we panic too much, to show you kind of what our percentages and our breakdown based on our current distribution. So we're expecting about 40%, like we mentioned before, to have that, to fall into that top group and hit that accelerated group. And then about 50% are going to be in our group where we order the medical exam and they still have all the classes available. And then we have about 10% falling in that negative risk classifier group, the one where standard is going to be the best class available. But built into that, while just because you have great medical history does not necessarily mean you're going to have a great score or a great risk classifier. Likelihood is, if you've got like a really poor risk classifier score, likelihood is you're going to basically have a other health history or other things that probably would get you a standard or worse rate anyway. So even that 10% is probably a little more intimidating or larger than really what we're going to see. There's probably going to be very little instances where we have poor risk classifiers and the person has perfect health history, family history and everything like that would get them a preferred plus rate. So. And then just a little more information about what this FCRA means, because you may be asking yourself, oh, so is this like running my credit, or are they going to see a credit hit? People are always concerned with that kind of thing. So first thing off, the authorization is already covered in our application and our authorization. The only thing that it will not be a credit hit. So the client will not see like a credit hit by American National. So it's not like an actual inquiry on their credit. But what we do have to do is if we do take some type of adverse action, so if you fall into that red group that we saw on the last slide, and we do have to basically limit you to a standard rate, and then everything else looks great. But so it's basically just the classifier that causes you to fall into a worse rate class. We do have to notify the customer. Just like if you get rejected for credit, they have to send you basically a notification of that and a way to clean up your credit. In this instance, we have to notify the customer if the risk classifier is the sole reason for the rate increase. And basically what will happen is a letter will be sent directly to the consumer. So that will go straight to the consumer. It will not be available in our expert office or anything like that. It will just be sent to the consumer, and that's an FCRA thing with privacy. So here is an example of what the letter will look like that they get. So we don't want you to be totally blindsided by this. And so you can see on here, basically it just kind of tells them, describes what happens. In the middle there, you can see reason codes and description. It'll basically give them a list of reasons why their classifier was poor enough to cause a rate issue. So basically there it will list out descriptions as to what happened. And so it may give them an indication of what's causing their risk classifier to indicate that they're a poor life risk. And so then just like other FCRA products, it will basically give them the invitation to request a full report and basically allow them to review the report to see if there's any bad information on there. And so you can see there below, there's an invitation to either mail that address or call. And we highly recommend call that number. And if they call that number and mention that they want their life report, it'll be really quick and easy. So if they just call and they ask for their full report, they may get something that fits in the back of a truck because these companies have a lot of information on us. But if they just want their life report, they call that number and they'll provide it. And that'll give them the ability to, with LexisNexis, to get any kind of erroneous information off there. And so then the next question is, okay, so I get my report cleaned up. How does that affect my classifier, and when can I reapply? They're telling us that it's about 60 to 90 days after you actually get something cleaned up. So say they had a bankruptcy on there, it wasn't you. So you call in, they go in and they go and work with the company that reported the bankruptcy. They get it off your report here, and it'll also go to whatever source they got it to and clean it up. So the good thing is if they get it cleaned off, if this bankruptcy or whatever would show up on anything they do that uses looks at that kind of thing. So it'll get that cleaned up. So they go to the originating source, get that cleaned up. And so then what will happen is the risk classifier will cleanse itself in about 60 to 90 days. We can rerun it and they'll have a different risk classifier score. So it takes about 60 to 90 days after they get it cleaned up for it to be reflected in the results. And then another thing you may be asking yourself now is like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna go through all this just to get a policy with American National. And so why would I go through all this trouble just to apply for insurance with you guys? And the first thing I'll say is it's because we're the best. But seriously though, there are many other companies using this risk classifier now, the same very product. And so if they're having issues applying for insurance with us, they're likely to run into the same hurdles at other companies as well. Before you go and just drop us and go to the next company, you're likely to see kind of a similar issue at another company as well. So, or even another insurance product. If you go and apply for auto insurance, auto insurance is traditionally used similar type scores, so it's possible that you might run into issues there too. So, it would really be a service to the consumer to get this cleaned up, as it could be affecting them in other areas. And so then the kinds of communication that you will get as you're going through this process. So in Expert App, we mentioned before just kind of how you will get notifications and as to whether the policy is on the track for our Express Plus underwriting. And so when you get to that screen where it asks you if you ordered a medical exam or not, it'll pop up this message. So if you're on the right track, you're still eligible for Express Plus based on what you put in the application. It'll pop up this message, and it'll say that the case is still eligible for Express Plus underwriting based on the information provided in this application. You do not need to order any medical exams or labs at this time. Please complete the application and monitor the status of your case in the expert office as further requirements, including an exam, may be necessary upon underwriter review. And so that's a little bit wordy, but we wanted that to be very clear in there what will happen. And then we mentioned before on that screen, it asks you if you've ordered a lab or not. So if you do click, I've ordered a lab, or I plan to order a lab, and the policy is on track for Express Plus, it'll do a little pop-up as well that says that the case is eligible for Express Plus, and it'll note that ordering the requirement, by ordering that medical exam, you will disqualify the case from the program. So basically, it just means that if you go through and the case is going to be clean, but you go ahead and order the medical exam and send it to us, we're going to go ahead and review the medical exam. So just by doing that, you're automatically disqualifying yourself from the program here. And then here you can see the message for what happens if based on what they've indicated in the application, that they're not going to be eligible for Express Plus. This clearly states that the case will require medical underwriting based on the information provided. Please complete the application and proceed with ordering the paramedical exam with full blood and urinalysis. And so at that point, this is before you've signed it and submitted the case. And so at that point, you can say, hey, I don't want to, if I don't get Express Plus, I don't want to do it. You can stop there, or if you do, you can go ahead and order the medical exam and save yourself the time of waiting for us to ask you for it. So, and once again, iPipeline will not provide these messages. So you can access Express Plus through iPipeline, but you just will not have these messages that kind of alert you as to the progress. Now, you do have a disqualification list, and so you can always check that out and make sure, like, you can kind of compare the application to what's on that list. And so in a way you can do it yourself, but with Expert App, you have that extra little pop-up that just kind of tells you one way or the other. And then we mentioned requirements. So if the case is on the Express Plus path, after the application is submitting, you go over to Expert Office. You will see pending underwriting review as the status of the case and the requirements. So that just means that that it's just waiting for the underwriter to bring it up and review all the third-party data and the application and all that. And as soon as they review it, they will either approve the case or order requirements. And then for cases that are not Express Plus, it'll have this requirement in there where it tells you to order exam, blood, urine due to the fact that it's ineligible for our Express Plus. So these requirements, as with all of our requirements, are in Expert Office, and then also are in our life status emails. So if you've opted into those on your cases, you'll see this is just part of the other list of policies and requirements. And then also the underwriter will email the appropriate agent or upline that the exam or lab requirement has been added. So if we've got a good email address in our system for for the agent or for the upline, whoever's managing the case or the back office, they'll be notified as well to go ahead and order it. So the underwriter that's been assigned the case will go ahead and fire that off as well. So should be a lot of heads up here that lets you know whether you need to go ahead and order that exam on the 60% or so that are not in the program here. All right, I have not sorted through all the questions, but I'm sure about 30 of them are about what's happening to our Underwriting Express program, our 250 and under program. So the big announcement for that is that we're now referring to it as Express. So basically, we are taking the E off, and that's the only change that we're making to our 250 and under business today. So no underwriting changes. You know, you can still access it through paper, electronic, still ages 0 to 65. There's nothing different happening with that program now. It's still going to work the same way it did before. So if you're concerned with that, don't be. It's exactly like it is today. So, all right. I feel like I blew through that. We've got a lot of questions. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at those. All right. Let's see. Will you offer preferred rates? Yes. We mentioned that before, but yeah, like on this program, it'll offer preferred plus, standard plus. All of our rate classes will be available with this program. Someone asked, is there a difference as far as the in the IGO platform, like IGO being iPipeline, on the questions between our expert app and iPipeline or IGO? No, the questions and everything in the application is exactly the same. The only difference is those notifications that tell you whether the policy is on the track for Express Plus or not. So other than that, the questions are the same. There's no difference there. Someone asked about smokers. I didn't specifically mention smokers or nicotine, but yes, the nicotine classes are preferred nicotine and standard nicotine are both eligible for this program as well. Someone asked, what is a teleapp and how is this different? A teleapp is basically where, and there are a lot of different ways to do it, but it's basically where the person taking the application, typically the agent, fills out just a small portion of the application. They may ask, you know, name and address and get some basic information on the client, but they don't go through and answer all the medical questions and all that kind of stuff. So basically they fill out like a portion of the application and submit it in, and then a tele-underwriting company calls the consumer back and goes through and asks them all the questions. And typically it's somebody with some kind of a medical background, and they'll prompt a little more, but that's what a teleapp is. And so with our program, the agent will still go ahead and complete the entire application and submit it to us. There will not be a teleapp involved. And a lot of questions on that. And yeah, just to reiterate, we are not doing any kind of phone interview, you know, verification of the application or anything like that. There's always a chance that we might come back to the agent with some kind of question on the application, but there's no formal tele-underwriting or phone interview or anything like that associated with this program. Somebody asked about, if you go back to our disqualification list, if I can jump back to that. So on there, on the line that mentions the RX record not found, So it says RX record about halfway down the second column. It says RX record not found and above 50 years old. That just means that if we go run our prescription database check and you're over 50 years old and the client does not have any kind of record at all, like it just shows no record at all, that's kind of a red flag for, kind of like why, just typically most people over the age of 50 have taken some type of medication or have some type of prescription in their history. And so it just kind of raises some red flags as to why that's not there. So it's basically just to say, like, we don't have enough information. Once again, this program is meant to streamline people that we feel like we have enough information to issue the policy without the medical exam. And so when you start running across cases where we have less information, or less, the person's person's history is less visible on these third-party sources, we may not feel comfortable, and that's when we'll order the medical exam. So yeah, that does mean that basically if there's no record found on the prescription database, then it will trigger the medical exam. All right, a lot of good questions here. Yeah, a lot of people asking about the risk classifier. So yeah, if you have a negative risk classifier, once again, the best class you can get is standard. You can't get anything better than the standard grade. Somebody asked a good question, would very little credit history be a negative? So if you have very little credit history, and once again, that risk classifier is not totally based on credit history, but if you have very little credit history, very little, very few public records, so it just means that you just don't have a lot of information out there. The likelihood is that you're going to end up with an average risk classifier. So typically you need negative information to give you a negative classifier. You need good positive things to give you a positive risk classifier. If there's just less information about you, that's going to put you in the middle, which once again leads you to having to order the medical exam. And as we mentioned before on the prescription thing, less information just means that if we go out there and we just can't find very much information about the applicant, it just means that we have to go get information, and the only information we have to order at that point is the medical exam. And that same question, as far as, well, hey, I'm 25 years old, like I don't have a whole lot of history. The risk classifier takes into account the differences you would expect for somebody in a different age group. So if you're if you're 25, then it's going to compare you to other 25-year-olds. If you're 65, it's going to compare you to other 65-year-olds. So it does take into account the fact that, there's higher mortality risk for older ages. So. And someone did again mention that if the negative risk warning comes up in the application, we should go to another company. Once again, I'll remind you that there are a lot of other companies using the same risk classifier and using the same type of criteria. So the likelihood is that, hey, yeah, if that's the only reason you came here and you know of another company that is not doing it for sure, yeah, let's not waste our time with something that you don't want. But in the end, if you're having issues with us, there's a likelihood that you're going to run into some similar issues with other companies as well. Somebody asked for the adverse risk classifier, if it'll be reported to MIB. No, it won't. This will not. The risk classifier reports to LexisNexis. It does not automatically report to MIB. Now, if we find anything in the process, we'll report just like we normally would to MIB, but we will not be reporting the risk classifier to MIB. Let's see. somebody asked whether the underwriter will order the exam. No, the underwriter will not order the exam. They will put the requirement in for the medical exam, and it'll still be up to the agent or the back office or whoever is normally responsible for ordering those to go ahead and schedule and order that. And somebody mentioned turnaround times. At this point, what we will do is because of this Express Plus program, is that these cases will be reviewed. They will be priority cases and be reviewed as soon as we can get to them. So we don't have an idea of exactly the turnaround time. We will get to that later, but just because it's a new process and we're still going through it, we do not know. We're not going to say that like we'll guarantee this will be turned around in X number of hours or anything like that. So stay tuned. But our goal is, we didn't call this Express Plus for no reason. We are going to try to move these through it as quickly as we can. And somebody asked, are we using the risk classifier only on Express Plus? We are going to be using, at this point, the risk classifier is going to be run on every application for over $250,000. So under $250,000, we will not be running it. Over $250,000, we will be running it, and it will be a part of the underwriting process. Whether you qualify for Express Plus or not, or whether you send in a paper application or electronic, everybody who applies for over $250,000 is going to have the risk classifier be a part of the underwriting process. Somebody asked if it's completely automated, and no, we still will have an underwriter reviewing everything, but it should turn around really quick. So.
And for anyone that didn't see it, we do have a handout on here, and that will give you kind of a basic overview of this program along with the disqualifiers and the underwriting requirements. And all of this will be available on our website on Monday.